During the fire, my girlfriend, Alyssa Reinhardt, shoved me into the flames to save her old flame. The one she truly pined for. Luckily, the firefighters showed up in time and I barely made it out alive. My childhood friend was furious on my behalf and begged me to break up with Alyssa and finally let her go. But I just looked at him confused and asked, "Who's Alyssa?" I remember everyone and everything else. Except for every single thing about my girlfriend, Alyssa. It's like she's been erased from my mind. After I got out of the ICU, I was moved to a regular hospital room. My childhood friend Mark Beckett came to visit me every day, chattering non-stop in my ear. He said Alyssa Reinhard was a snake. Pure evil. Not only did she not save me, but she didn't even bother to visit while I was in the ICU. Instead, she was off on vacation overseas with her old flame lying in bed. I was thoroughly confused. Who the hell is Alyssa? Is she some new idol from a reality show? Why don't I remember a single thing about her? Come on, Connor. Are you seriously telling me you have amnesia? Do you at least remember who I am? Mark stared at me worried. Get out of here. I don't have amnesia. I remember everything. It's just this girlfriend you keep talking about. The one I am supposedly head over heels for, Alyssa. I don't have the faintest memory of her. Shocked, Mark called the doctor to run more tests. The end, they confirmed it was real amnesia. Selective amnesia. I had selectively forgotten the most intense pain in my memory, along with the person who caused it. Yeah, maybe it's for the best. Forget her now, you can live a normal life. Mark actually seemed relieved. Like the accident had been a blessing in disguise. You have no idea. Back then you were a total lovesick fool. A good-looking guy, sure. But a complete idiot. You let Alyssa walk all over you without a single complaint. To keep her, you trail behind her and her old flame like a pathetic dog. A total lost cause. Listening to Mark's story, I was blown away. Was I really that much of a sucker? Such a lovesick fool. That I'd help my girlfriend chase after her old flame? The hospital door burst open. The sharp, rhythmic click of high heels hit my ears before anything else. I turned to look and a delicate, beautiful face came into view. Big eyes, bold red lips. Loose wavy hair naturally spilling over her shoulders. So stunning I couldn't look away. I was mesmerized. Now, this was the kind of woman I could see myself being lovesick over. But before my racing heart could even get started, she walked straight up to me, raised her hand and slapped me across the face. The sound rang out like a bell, drowning out the whole room. Connor. Her pretty face twisted into something ugly, her eyes locking onto mine as her shrill voice filled the entire floor. You coward, you pathetic coward. What? You got a little hurt? And that useless friend of yours had to blow up my phone every day, begging me to come see you. And now you're pretending to have amnesia? Well, you're not dead yet. Are you? You could have at least died before calling me here. She jetted her index finger into my forehead, shoving me hard back onto the bed. The stitches on my waist hadn't healed yet. With that kind of force, blood started seeping through the bandages. I let out a low groan, gritted my teeth against the pain, and looked up at this woman who'd appeared out of nowhere. Totally baffled, I asked, Who are you? She seemed shocked, letting out a scoff of disbelief. Keep pretending. Keep it up. I just went overseas to celebrate Dylan's birthday. Is that really worth you acting like you're dying? Connor. Judging by her reaction, and the way Mark had shrunk back into the corner like a bystander, it finally clicked. So this was Alyssa. The one Mark had been talking about. The girlfriend who pushed me, her actual boyfriend, into a fire to save her old flame. Then didn't look back. One who was vacationing overseas with her old flame. While I was in the emergency room, I couldn't help but laugh coldly at first. Yeah, I was drawn to her looks. She was the kind of woman who'd make your heart skip a beat if you saw her on the street. But then she opened her mouth. Then she raised her hand. And that good first impression went straight out the window. I didn't see some stunning, captivating beauty anymore. I just saw a low-class, trashy bully. Every bit of that initial attraction vanished on the spot. Miss, I really don't know you. I think you've got the wrong person if you keep acting crazy like this. Don't blame me for having security escort you out. My voice was cold. I stopped looking at her, but she didn't seem willing to let it go. She grabbed my collar and yanked me up again, leaning in close, her tone softening, almost like she was trying to sound sweet. Connor, you used to love it when I hit you and yelled at you. What's wrong with you now? Are you actually mad? I told you before. Dylan is just an old friend from school. There's nothing going on between us. I just want to celebrate his birthday. You're the one I've always loved. Alyssa's eyes instantly welled up with tears. I was honestly stunned. She had gone from furious to pitiful in the span of a heartbeat. Started to wonder if her real job was acting. Let go of me first. I pulled away from her. Covered my nose and scooted back a little. But that simple gesture seemed to cut her deep. The tears started streaming down her face. Connor, were you just grossed out by me? Well, yeah, kind. Her perfume was way too strong. I have really bad allergies and I couldn't stand it. I know Dylan gave me this perfume. But you used to love it on me. So why are you grossed out now? Still crying. She sat right down on the bed and pulled me into a tight hug. Like she was desperate to prove that I really had loved her once. Sorry, it's just I have allergies. Could you back up a little? You have allergies? Since when do you have allergies? Her face was still wet with tears. But now her brow was furrowed. You never had allergies before? Did a fire suddenly give you allergies? Connor, that's such a lame excuse. I kept sniffing. I couldn't take the assault of that perfume anymore. Sneezing several times in a row. Only people with allergies understand how sensitive we are to smells. Heavy perfume was enough to ruin my whole day. How much must I have loved her back then? To suffer through my allergies just to tolerate the perfume she loved? And yet she had no idea I even had allergies? Pathetic. Honestly, pathetic. I was about to defend the old me. The one who'd been so pathetically crazy about her. When the hospital door swung open again. Behind it, a gentle, bookish young man walked in slowly. The second Alyssa saw him, she wiped away her tears, broke into a smile and pulled him over to stand by my bedside. Dylan, take out that gift you bought for Connor when you were overseas. The young man pulled a small gift box out of his backpack. Inside lay a single fountain pen. What's this? I stared at this guy named Dylan. Totally confused. I'd expected some tall, handsome, alpha male. Instead, standing in front of me was this delicate, glasses-wearing, pretty boy. Connor. I wanted to give you this gift. Thank you for saving Alyssa and me during the fire. And also for letting her come overseas with me for my birthday. Dylan's voice was soft, almost babyish. If Mark hadn't told me he was only 2 years younger than me, I would have sworn he was still in college. And Connor, please don't be mad at Alyssa. Be mad at me instead. That fire really scared me. Alyssa only came with me because she didn't want me to be traumatized. Please don't fight because of me. Dylan hung his head, ripping the corner of his shirt with his fingers. He looked like a good little boy who done something wrong and was waiting to be punished. Honestly, it was kind of heartbreaking. Stop apologizing. What did you do wrong? Alyssa pulled Dylan behind her. He's 6'2". He's supposed to protect you. Look how small you are. What would happen if you got hurt? He's just in the hospital for a few days. You almost got permanent psychological damage. That's a lifelong thing. You didn't do anything wrong. Alyssa straightened up, righteous and indignant. Connor, I don't care what you think. Dylan is just too kind and too naive. He didn't do anything wrong and he even bought you a gift to apologize. So stop throwing a tantrum and pretending to have amnesia. With Dylan, Alyssa was all sweetness and warmth. With me, ice cold. I honestly couldn't tell who her actual boyfriend was supposed to be. But I did figure one thing out. Controlling, selfish woman like Alyssa would definitely go for a soft, puppy-like guy like Dylan. I'm not throwing a tantrum and I'm not mad. Alyssa, is it? I need to rest now. Please leave. I don't want you disturbing me. The wound that had just been pulled open was starting to hurt. I just wanted them gone so I could get some rest. But before I could even settle back into bed, Alyssa launched into another round of explanations right in my face. Connor. Are you really not going to forgive me in an emergency like that? I had to take Dylan and go. He couldn't get hurt. You know his situation. He's an only child and he has a sick mother depending on him. He's not like you. You come from a wealthy family. What's wrong with me looking out for him as his senior? Alyssa kept yapping in my ear, giving me a pounding headache. I just got out of bed and walked straight out of the room. If they wouldn't leave, I would. I went up to the hospital rooftop. Finally, some peace and quiet. The blue sky and cool breeze gave me a little relief. But my wound was still seeping blood. Gritted my teeth against the pain and tried to remember. Still nothing about Alyssa. Not a single memory. But those 15 minutes with her, they left me feeling disgusted. From the bottom of my heart all the way to my scalp. The blood kept soaking through. I bent over, barely able to take the pain. Before I knew it, I passed out. When I woke up, I was back in my room. Mark grabbed me and tore into me, yelling about how I always had to make things harder on myself. He said that after I left. Alyssa and Dylan just stayed put, refusing to leave. Then, the hospital director came in to check on me, and found that the patient, who needed rest, had been driven out of his own room, while 2 people who had no business being there were sitting on the bed with their legs crossed, eating the fruit that was meant for me. The director lost it. Them both out and put them on the hospital's blacklist. Just imagining the look on their faces as they got thrown out made me burst out laughing. What are you going to do now? Mark asked you when Alyssa started that company together. You need to get it back, he reminded me. I didn't remember Alyssa, but I did remember my company. I built it from the ground up. After graduation, Mark told me that the company was supposedly a joint venture between me and Alyssa. But really, I was such a lovesick fool back then that I handed over half the shares for free. He hadn't done a thing to earn them. I let out a long sigh. Once again, I felt embarrassed for my old lovesick self. Right now, Alyssa is running the company. Everyone there answers to her. You've got a lot ahead of you. Getting your shares back, winning people over. It's not going to be easy. Watching Mark bust his gut worrying about me really moved me. After getting the full picture about Alyssa, I had a clear plan. No matter how stupid I was back then. Everything that belongs to me, I'm going to take it back. I'm done being some lovesick fool who gets walked all over. Don't worry, I've got my ways. I'm taking back everything that's mine. After that day, Alyssa never came back to the hospital to see me. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital and then got discharged. When I got home, I noticed some women's toiletries around the house. And a few women's clothes in the closet. Figured they must have belonged to Alyssa. So we had been living together. This was actually our place. Looking at those clothes, my head started hurting again. So I grabbed a suitcase and shoved everything of hers into it. Out of sight, out of mind. I heard noise coming from downstairs. Hurry down. Worried someone had broken in. But the moment I got downstairs, I was blinded by the sight of 2 people locked in an embrace. Alyssa had brought that pretty boy, Dylan, to my house. 2 of them were kissing without a care in the world. Right there in my living room. I was absolutely furious. Rage was building in my chest. About to explode. They spotted me and quickly pulled apart. Looking at me in panic. Connor, what? What are you doing here? Alyssa hurriedly fixed her clothes and stepped in front of Dylan. Her eyes full of obvious guilt and fear. I let out a cold laugh, almost wanting to give them a round of applause. For their little performance. That's what I should be asking you. Don't misunderstand. Alyssa fixed her clothes. Ran up the stairs and grabbed onto me tightly. Her eyes instantly turned red and teary. Connor, I had a business meeting today. I drank too much. Dylan came to take me home. And I got confused. For a second. I thought he was you. Please don't misunderstand. Watching her like this, I couldn't help but wonder. I'd heard that Alyssa was supposed to be overbearing and reckless. That she never took me, her actual boyfriend, seriously. So why was she acting so pitiful now? Who was she putting on this act for? I shook off her hand. My face cold. I was about to order them to get out. When Dylan ran up the stairs and stood between us. Shielding Alyssa. Connor. Please don't be mad at Alyssa. She didn't do anything wrong. It was my fault. I couldn't control myself. Please don't fight. I'll leave. Dylan lowered his head, glancing at Alyssa. Then at me. That pitiful, helpless look of his was even more heartbreaking than Alyssa's. Connor, you don't believe me? I'm your girlfriend. Why would I be involved with Dylan? Don't you have any trust in me anymore? Alyssa's emotions started flaring up. The whole let's make this no big deal attitude from earlier was long gone. Thought I was starting to understand something. Dylan was Alyssa's emotional trigger. Whenever he started acting humble and begging, Alyssa's temper would explode. Maybe it was the way Dylan looked. That brought out her protective instinct. Like a mother wolf protecting her cub. Ready to fight to the death against anyone who threatened it. At the end of the day, the only person Alyssa truly cared about was Dylan. Both of you get out. Both of you get out. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The quiet, icy finality of those 5 words seemed to drop the temperature in the room by 10 degrees. Alyssa froze, her hand still hovering protectively near Dylan's shoulder. For a second, her tear-streaked face showed a flash of genuine panic, but it was quickly replaced by a flare of her characteristic, ugly temper. Connor, are you insane? She shrieked, her voice bouncing off the high ceiling of the foyer. You're throwing me out? This is my home too. We bought this place together. Did we? I leaned against the banister, carefully guarding my left side where the stitches still throbbed with a dull, persistent ache. From what Mark tells me, my family's trust fund paid the entire down payment. Your name is on the deed only because my past, brain-damaged self was stupid enough to put it there. But legally, I am the primary owner. And right now, you are trespassing. Dylan shrank back, his large, doe-like eyes darting between us. He reached out and tugged gently at the hem of Alyssa's jacket. Alyssa, maybe we should go. I don't want you two fighting because of me. It's my fault. If I hadn't come over to take care of you. Don't you dare apologize to him, Dylan. Alyssa snapped, though her eyes remained locked on me, searching my face for any sign of the weak-willed, desperate boy she was used to manipulating. Connor, stop this childish game. You think pretending to forget me gives you the right to treat me like this? You've tolerated Dylan being in my life for 3 years. You begged me not to leave you, remember? You said you didn't care who else I spent time with, as long as I came home to you at night. Hearing those words felt like a physical slap, worse than the one she'd delivered in the hospital. A deep, burning embarrassment washed over me. I couldn't remember those moments, and for that, I was profoundly grateful. But the mere thought that I had once lowered myself to such a pathetic state made my stomach turn. I don't remember saying any of that, I said, my voice deadpan. And frankly, hearing it now just makes me want to vomit. If I was that pathetic before the fire, then I suppose I owe those flames a thank you note. They burned away the absolute worst parts of me. I walked down the remaining steps, keeping my distance to avoid the suffocating cloud of her heavy, cloying perfume. I went straight to the closet by the front door, pulled out the heavy suitcase I had just packed with her things, and dragged it across the hardwood floor. With a dull thud, I set it right at her feet. Your clothes, your makeup, your trash. It's all in here, I said, opening the front door wide. The cool evening air rushed in, sweeping away the scent of her perfume, and I took a deep, clear breath. If there's anything else left behind, I'll have Mark dump it in the nearest garbage disposal. Now, get out of my house. Alyssa's face went pale. The reality of the situation was finally starting to sink in. The loyal dog she had kept on a short leash for years had not just broken free, he didn't even recognize her voice anymore. Connor, you can't do this, she whispered, her voice trembling. This time, the tears looked real, born of bruised pride and sudden, sharp fear. We have a company to run. We have a product launch next month. You need me. No, I replied, staring her straight in the eyes. You need me. Now go. Dylan, realizing the tide had completely turned, grabbed the handle of the suitcase. Come on, Alyssa. Let's leave. Connor he's not himself right now. We'll talk when he's calmer. He gave me a look that was supposed to be apologetic, but there was a subtle, triumphant smirk hidden in the corner of his lips. He thought he had won. He thought he had successfully stolen Alyssa, and that I was just throwing a tantrum. He had no idea that I was handing her over to him on a silver platter, and that she was about to become his worst nightmare. With one last, venomous glare, Alyssa let Dylan pull her out into the night. I slammed the door shut behind them, locked it, and leaned my back against the wood, letting out a long, shuddering breath. My waist flared with sharp pain. I reached down, feeling the bandages. They were slightly damp with fresh blood. I pulled out my phone and dialed Mark. Hey, I said when he picked up. It's done. They're gone. Did she throw a fit? Mark asked, his voice tight with worry. The usual. Crying, yelling, gaslighting. She brought Dylan here. I caught them kissing in my living room. There was a heavy silence on the other end of the line, followed by a string of curses. That absolute snake. She didn't even wait for you to fully heal before bringing that parasite into your house. Connor, tell me you didn't let them off easy. I threw her suitcase down the stairs and kicked them both out, I said, a small, cold smile forming on my face. But that's just the beginning. Mark, we need to talk about the company. I want a full financial audit of Apex Designs. Every penny, every transaction, every contract signed over the last 3 years. I want to know exactly what she's been doing with my money. Already on it, brother, Mark said, his tone shifting to one of grim determination. I've got a contact, a forensic accountant named Vance. He's the best in the business. If Alyssa's been skimming off the top to fund her little boyfriend's lifestyle, Vance will find it. Good, I said, looking out the window at the empty driveway. Because tomorrow, I'm going back to the office. It's time to show Alyssa Reinhardt what happens when the dog finally bites back. The headquarters of Apex Designs occupied the top 2 floors of a sleek, glass-fronted high-rise in the city's financial district. I had built this digital marketing agency from scratch during my senior year of college, putting in 80-hour weeks, surviving on instant noodles and coffee, while my family's seed money kept the lights on. When Alyssa came into my life 2 years ago, she had convinced me that she was a branding genius who could take the company to the next level. In my lovesick blindness, I had restructured the company, giving her a co-founder title and 50% of the shares for free. As I walked through the glass double doors the next morning, a hush fell over the open concept office. The employees, designers, developers, account managers, all stopped what they were doing to stare. Many of them looked at me with a mix of shock and pity. They knew about the fire. They knew I had been in the ICU. And, undoubtedly, they had heard rumors about Alyssa's behavior. Mr. Connor. My assistant, a bright, energetic young woman named Chloe, rushed over to me. Her eyes were wide with concern, and she was holding a stack of files so tightly her knuckles were white. Chloe, I said, giving her a reassuring smile. Good to see you. Are you okay? Should you be here? The doctor said you needed at least another month of bed rest. She whispered frantically, looking over her shoulder toward the corner executive office. I'm fine, Chloe. A little sore, but perfectly capable of working, I replied. What's the status of the office? Chloe lowered her voice even further, leaning in. It's a mess, sir. Ever since the accident, Ms. Reinhardt has been running things like a dictator. She's been diverting resources from our main clients to some pet project called DL Creative Solutions. And, well, she's been telling everyone that you had a mental breakdown and might not return to the company at all. My eyes narrowed. DL Creative Solutions. It didn't take a genius to figure out what the DL stood for. I see, I said, my voice calm but dangerously cold. Where is she now? She's in your old office. She moved her things in there last week. She's actually in a meeting with Dylan right now. They're using the main conference room. Thank you, Chloe. Get me a cup of black coffee, and then call a company-wide meeting in 30 minutes. Everyone. No exceptions. Yes, sir. Chloe's face lit up with a spark of hope. She had been with me since the beginning, and she hated Alyssa's management style as much as anyone. I walked down the hallway, the polished concrete floor quiet beneath my shoes. Through the glass walls of the main conference room, I could see them. Alyssa was sitting at the head of the table, looking radiant in a designer power suit. Dylan was sitting next to her, dressed in an oversized, trendy sweater, lazily scrolling through his phone. On the table between them were several expensive leather-bound folders and a box of high-end pastries. I didn't knock. I simply pushed the door open. The glass door swung back with a sharp click. Alyssa looked up, her expression instantly hardening when she saw me. Dylan flinched, instinctively sliding his chair a few inches away from her. Connor, Alyssa said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness as she stood up. What are you doing here? You should be resting. The hospital said you were in no condition to work. The hospital discharged me, Alyssa. I'm perfectly fine, I said, walking into the room and pulling out a chair at the opposite end of the table. And since this is my company, this is exactly where I belong. Our company, Alyssa corrected him sharply, her eyes flashing. Lest you forget, I own 50% of Apex Designs. And while you've been lying in a hospital bed playing the victim, I've been keeping this place afloat. Keeping it afloat? Or sinking it? I asked, throwing a folder onto the table. It was a printout of the company's recent cash flow statements that Chloe had slipped me on my way in. Explain to me why 3 of our biggest legacy clients, including the Vane Group, have put their contracts on hold. And explain to me why $50,000 of our operational budget was wired to an unregistered shell company called DL Creative Solutions last Tuesday. Alyssa's face flushed. She glanced at Dylan, who was suddenly very interested in his fingernails. That is an investment. Alyssa stammered, recovering her composure quickly. Dylan is a brilliant young designer. He's launching his own creative consultancy, and Apex is partnering with him. It's a strategic move to expand our reach. A strategic move? I let out a dry, mocking laugh. Dylan has no portfolio, no business experience, and no clients. The only thing he's brilliant at is spending my money. This isn't an investment, Alyssa. This is embezzlement. How dare you? Alyssa slammed her hands on the table. I have the authority to make executive decisions. I don't need your permission to write checks. Actually, you do, a calm, authoritative voice interrupted. Mark walked into the conference room, wearing a sharp gray suit. Behind him was a tall, middle-aged man with a stern face and a thick leather briefcase, Vance, the forensic accountant. What is the meaning of this? Alyssa demanded, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. Mark, this is a private company meeting. Get your friend out of here before I call security. Go ahead and call them, Alyssa, Mark said, leaning against the doorframe with a satisfied grin. But I think security will be more interested in escorting you out once they see what Vance has found. Vance stepped forward, opening his briefcase and placing a stack of neatly bound documents on the table. Ms. Reinhardt, Vance said, his voice completely devoid of emotion. I have spent the last 12 hours reviewing Apex Design's financial records. It appears that over the past 18 months, you have authorized over $400,000 in consulting fees and marketing expenses to various accounts associated with Mr. Dylan Lewis. None of these transactions have any supporting documentation, deliverables, or board approval. Alyssa's eyes widened. She looked at the documents, then at me, her confidence finally beginning to fracture. This is a joke, she whispered, though her voice lacked its earlier fire. Connor, you gave me those shares. You said I could do whatever I wanted with the company's funds as long as we grew. I might have been a lovesick fool back then, Alyssa, but the law doesn't care about my past stupidity, I said, leaning forward. A 50% share. Shareholding does not give you the right to use the company as your personal piggy bank. In corporate law, that's called a breach of fiduciary duty. It's a civil offense, and in this volume, it's a criminal one. Dylan's face drained of all color. He looked at Alyssa, his lip trembling. Alyssa, you said it was fine. You said Connor approved all of this. You said he wanted to help me. Shut up, Dylan. Alyssa snapped, her composure completely shattering. She turned back to me, her eyes wild. Connor, you can't do this to me. You loved me. You would have died for me in that fire. But I didn't die, I said softly. And because I didn't, I got to wake up without the poison of your presence in my mind. The amnesia was a gift, Alyssa. It washed away the illusions. I look at you now, and I don't see a woman I loved. I see a parasite. I stood up, the movement sending a sharp pang of pain through my side, but I didn't let it show on my face. I have called a company-wide meeting in 15 minutes, I continued. I will be announcing that you are being suspended from all executive duties pending a full investigation. If you do not cooperate, the next people you'll be talking to will be the police. You can't fire me. Alyssa screamed, her face contorting into an ugly mask of rage. I own half this company. I will block every decision you make. I will ruin this company before I let you take it back. We'll see about that, I said. For now, get out of my sight. Over the next 2 weeks, the office of Apex Designs became a silent war zone. True to her threat, Alyssa refused to sign over her shares or step down quietly. Because we technically held a 50-50 split, she attempted to use her voting rights to veto every operational decision I made. She blocked payroll approvals, tried to fire Chloe, and even attempted to lock me out of the company's digital servers. But I was prepared. Mark and Vance had worked tirelessly to build an airtight case. We discovered that Alyssa had not only embezzled funds but had also leaked proprietary client data to Dylan's fake agency in an attempt to steal our smaller accounts. Meanwhile, our largest client, the Vane Group, was growing restless. They were a massive multinational conglomerate, and their marketing contract accounted for nearly 40% of our annual revenue. The CEO, Arthur Vane, was a notoriously strict, old-school businessman who despised corporate drama. Connor, we have a problem, Mark said, walking into my office one afternoon. Arthur Vane just called. He's heard about the internal struggle and the embezzlement rumors. He wants to meet tomorrow morning. If we can't reassure him, he's pulling the contract. If we lose Vane, the company goes under, regardless of who owns the shares, I muttered, rubbing my temples. The stress was starting to take a toll on my recovery, but I couldn't stop now. Did he say who he wanted to meet with? He wants both you and Alyssa in the room. He wants to see who's actually running the show. I let out a cold laugh. Perfect. Let's give him a show he won't forget. That evening, as I was leaving the office late, the elevators opened to reveal Dylan standing there. He didn't look like the confident, pampered pretty boy I had seen in my living room. His clothes were slightly wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, he didn't mock me or act small. Instead, he looked desperate. Connor, he said, stepping out of the elevator and blocking my path. Can we please talk? Just for 5 minutes. I have nothing to say to you, Dylan, I said, trying to walk past him. Please, he begged, reaching out to grab my sleeve, though he quickly pulled his hand back when I glared at him. It's about Alyssa. She's losing her mind, Connor. She's obsessed with destroying you, even if it means destroying herself. She's going to ruin everything. I paused, curious to see what game he was playing now. And why do you care? I thought you two were soulmates. She pushed me into a fire to save you. Remember? Dylan's face twisted in shame. She did that because she's controlling. She treats me like a pet, Connor. She dictates what I wear, what I do, who I talk to. She used the money she stole from you to buy me things, but it was all just a way to keep me on a leash. Just like she did to you. Don't compare me to you, I said coldly. I was an idiot who fell for her lies. You're a parasite who actively helped her steal from me. I was scared. Dylan cried, his voice echoing in the empty hallway. She told me that if I didn't go along with it, she'd cut me off and leave me with nothing. My mother is sick, Connor. I really needed the money for her treatment. Please. I don't want to go to jail. If you drop the charges against me, I'll tell you everything. I'll give you the login credentials to the account she used to hide the stolen money. I have records of every text message where she told me to lie to you. I stared at him, feeling a mixture of disgust and dark satisfaction. This was the great love Alyssa had sacrificed everything for. The moment things got difficult, he was ready to throw her under the bus to save his own skin. You have those records on you? I asked. Dylan nodded eagerly, pulling out his phone. Yes. I backed them all up on a drive. I can send them to you right now. Send them to Mark, I said, turning away. And Dylan? If you try to double-cross me, I'll make sure you share a cell with her. I won't. I swear, he stammered, his relief almost pathetic to witness. I got into the elevator, the doors closing on his desperate, pale face. I had the final piece of the puzzle. Now, all that was left was the execution. The boardroom of the Vane Group was located on the 80th floor of a magnificent skyscraper overlooking the harbor. The massive oak table was surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a dizzying view of the city. Below, Arthur Vane sat at the head of the table, his arms crossed, his face expressionless. Next to him were his legal counsel and his chief operating officer. Alyssa was already seated on one side of the table, looking incredibly poised and confident. She had spent the last hour trying to charm Vane's executives, laughing at their dry jokes and acting as if she were the sole visionary of Apex Designs. When I walked in with Mark, Alyssa's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. But she quickly recovered. Connor, you're late, she said, her voice dripping with maternal concern. I was just telling Mr. Vane that we should start without you. Given your delicate health, we didn't want to strain you. I'm perfectly fine, Alyssa, I said, taking a seat directly opposite her. And I wouldn't miss this meeting for the world. Arthur Vane cleared his throat, a deep, rumbling sound that immediately silenced the room. Let's get straight to the point. Apex Designs has handled our marketing for 3 years. You've done excellent work, Connor. But recently, I've been hearing disturbing reports. Rumors of financial instability, leadership conflicts, and potential legal issues. The Vane Group cannot be associated with a company in turmoil. I need to know who is in control, and I need to know today. Alyssa leaned forward, her face a picture of professional grace. Mr. Vane, I completely understand your concerns. The truth is, Connor has suffered a severe traumatic brain injury from a recent accident. He is currently suffering from amnesia and is emotionally unstable. He has been making reckless accusations and disrupting our operations. As the co-founder and 50% shareholder, I am taking steps to transition him out of active management for his own well-being. I assure you, under my sole leadership, Apex will be stronger than ever. She looked at me, a triumphant, smug smirk playing on her lips. She thought she had won. She thought Arthur Vane, an old-school man, would side with her polished presentation over a recovering patient. Is that so, Ms. Reinhardt? I said quietly. I opened my laptop and connected it to the boardroom's massive presentation screen. Mr. Vane, before you make your decision, would like to present a short report on the actual state of Apex Designs leadership, I said. On the screen, a series of financial documents appeared. They were not the doctored spreadsheets Alyssa had been presenting to the board, but the raw forensic audit files compiled by Vance, complete with bank transfer receipts, forged signatures, and shell company registrations. Over the past year and a half, Ms. Reinhardt has diverted over $400,000 of our operational capital to fund a shell company called DL Creative Solutions, which is owned by her personal associate, Dylan Lewis, I explained calmly. These funds were directly stolen from our client service budgets, including the budget allocated for the Vane Group's upcoming Q4 campaign. Arthur Vane's eyebrows shot up. He looked at the screen, then at his legal counsel, who was already reviewing the documents with a grim expression. This is a lie. Alyssa screamed, jumping to her feet. All her professional polish vanished in an instant, replaced by her raw, screeching temper. He's fabricating these. He's crazy. He's doing this because he's jealous of my relationship with Dylan. I don't think so, Ms. Reinhardt, Mark said, stepping forward and tapping a key on my laptop. A new folder opened on the screen. It contained dozens of screenshots of text messages, complete with timestamps and phone numbers. Alyssa, I just wired another $30,000 to your account. Make sure you buy that watch you wanted. Connor won't notice, he's too busy working like a dog. Dylan, are you sure? What if he checks the books? Alyssa, he won't. He does whatever I tell him to. He's pathetic. If he asks, I'll just tell him it's for a client launch. The boardroom went dead silent. Alyssa stared at the screen, her face turning from red to a ghostly, horrifying white. No. No, where did you get those? Dylan. Dylan wouldn't. Dylan gave them to me last night, Alyssa, I said, looking at her with nothing but cold pity. He was more than happy to trade his evidence against you in exchange for a lighter sentence. It turns out that the true love you pushed me into a fire to save didn't even hesitate to sell you out the moment the police got involved. That little rat. Alyssa gasped, her knees buckling as she sank back into her chair. Her eyes were wide, vacant, and filled with a horrifying realization. The house of cards she had built on a foundation of manipulation and greed had completely collapsed. Arthur Vane stood up, his face dark with fury. This is disgusting, Vane said, looking at Alyssa as if she were a piece of trash on his shoe. Ms. Reinhardt, my legal team will be contacting the authorities immediately. We will also be filing a lawsuit against you personally for the misuse of our campaign funds. Get out of my boardroom. He then turned to me, his expression softening slightly. Connor, I apologize for doubting you. You built a great company, and it's clear you've been victimized by someone you trusted. If you can clean this mess up and remove this woman from your company permanently, the Vane Group's contract remains yours. Thank you, Mr. Vane, I said, shaking his hand. I assure you, she won't be a part of Apex Designs by the end of the day. The final confrontation took place in my office late that afternoon. Alyssa sat across from me, her signature poise completely shattered. Her makeup was ruined by tears, her hair was messy, and she looked 10 years older than she had that morning. Mark and our legal team stood behind me, holding the official settlement documents. Here are your options, Alyssa, I said, sliding the papers across the desk. Option A, you sign over your 50% shares to me for a nominal fee of $1. In exchange, I will agree not to press private civil charges against you, though you will still have to deal with the criminal investigation for embezzlement and the Vane Group's lawsuit. Option B, you refuse to sign, we go to court, and I use every resource at my disposal to ensure you get the maximum prison sentence possible. Alyssa looked at the papers, her hands trembling so violently she could barely hold them. Connor, please, she sobbed, looking up at me with those big, tearful eyes that had once controlled my entire life. I'm sorry. I was stupid. I was manipulated by Dylan. He was the one who kept asking for money. He threatened to leave me if I didn't give him what he wanted. I only did it because I was desperate. It doesn't matter why you did it, Alyssa, I said, my voice completely flat. And honestly, the fact that you're still trying to blame Dylan just proves you haven't learned a single thing. Do you really not remember anything? She whispered, staring at me with a desperate, haunting look. Do you not remember the trip we took to Paris? Or the night we promised to spend our lives together? How can you look at me with so much hatred? I was your everything. I looked at her, searching my mind one last time for any trace of the feelings she was describing. Nothing. There was no warmth, no nostalgia, no anger, and no pain. Just a vast, beautiful emptiness where she used to be. I don't hate you, Alyssa, I said, and for the first time, a genuine smile appeared on my face. To hate you, I would have to care about you. But the truth is, I look at you now, and I feel absolutely nothing. You are a complete stranger to me. And you always will be. Her face fell, her last hope extinguished by my absolute indifference. She realized then that the old Connor, the lovesick fool who would have crawled through broken glass just to see her smile, was truly, permanently dead. He had died in that fire, and he was never coming back. With a shaking hand, she picked up the pen and signed the documents. relinquishing her shares, her power, and her claim on my life. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out of the office, her head hung low. There was no sharp, rhythmic click of her high heels this time. Just the quiet, pathetic shuffle of a defeated woman. Mark walked over, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "It's over, brother. You got it all back." "Yeah," I said, looking out the window at the city skyline, bathed in the warm golden light of the setting sun. "It's over." My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from the hospital, reminding me of my follow-up appointment next week. I smiled, deleting the notification. I didn't need a doctor to tell me I was healed. For the first time in years, my mind was perfectly clear, my heart was light, and my future was entirely my own.